PCR test ourselves, so I can tell you that that is the preferred methodology when one is concerned about sensitivity. What we have with the Sophia SARS antigen test is a different technology that uses antibodies to detect proteins on the surface of the virus. And this is just a far quicker method, so that if I'm testing my employees here, for example, I can identify those that are positive the same day, and I can also then send those folks home. I can quarantine those folks, and then we obviously want to find out who their contacts are, and that's important. So the speed and the ability to frequently test, and this methodology also can be manufactured in far greater quantities.
So it's a lot quicker, but I think you just said there it's a little less accurate. How much less accurate is it potentially?
The sensitivity, once we get enough data, is likely to be in the high 80s, which means that you're roughly going to miss 1 out of 10 that you might ordinarily pick up if you were sending it away to a reference lab and waiting a couple days in order to get the answer back. So if I wanted to make sure that I got all 10 out of 10, let's say, that's what I would do. But there's far greater value in finding the 9 out of the 10 and understanding that I need to quarantine those people right now.
So it sounds like a 9 out of 10. So the false negatives is a problem there. I mean, what would you recommend if people were to start using these tests broadly, and with that kind of false negative rate, what should they do if you get a negative? How do you interpret that?
Well, just as you do with my PCR product, if it's a negative and the physician strongly suspects that something's up, then that should be reflexed to another molecular method. So it's known that any of these tests will have some level of false negatives. Here, the technology is not designed to be 100% sensitive. It is highly specific. If I tell you that you're positive, then you highly likely are positive. But we have a methodology that has a far greater good when we can test more rapidly and with far greater frequency. So I would say that the false negative is an issue, but I wouldn't say it's a problem. I would say that we test with an understanding that we need to test frequently in order to identify people as quickly as we can to, say, send kids back to school or to test healthcare providers or first responders. In order to do that, you have to have these tests that are available to be tested in more democratized locations and very frequently.
And Doug, to that point, I mean, how democratized? Would the expectation be that any large office building has one of these on site and you're tested every day you come in for work, or not quite that level of frequency?
Well, immediately what we're doing is we're shipping customers who already have our instrument, and those are in physicians' offices, urgent care centers, hospital labs, physician offices. Some pharmacies have them as well. Eventually, once we have more boxes that are available and we've gotten past the initial tranche of customers that we're shipping, I could see how you would have methodologies for screening people in office buildings. But for the moment, we're focused on shipping preferentially to those customers that can test healthcare providers, first responders, including military. We understand there's an issue in meat packing right now, so that's in a category of food safety where we think we should prioritize that as well. After that, we're working on a couple of pilots here in town. We're working on a pilot with a school to see if we can figure out how we do that. We also have a pilot with a private equity company that has a number of portfolio companies. We're going to see how we can help them do the testing for their employees. So it's early days. We just shipped last week a couple 100,000 tests. This week we're shipping another 240,000. By a week or so, we'll be up to 1 million tests a week. And then within a couple weeks after that, we'll be up to 1.5 million and then 1.8 million per week. And it's at that stage that I think we can start to address employee testing.
Is this still a nasal swab? Is that how these tests are administered? And does that...
It is a nasal swab.
So does that make it complicated? I mean, those are painful, aren't they?
Well, there are two swabs. There's a nasal pharyngeal swab. That's the one that goes into your sinus cavity. That, most people, if they've had a swab taken that way, they certainly don't want the second swab. The nasal swab, on the other hand, just goes just on the inside of your nasal passage and is not painful at all. So I insert the swab an inch or so in, twist, and remove the swab. It's very quick. It's very painless. And then we take the sample in a very simple cartridge. We insert the liquid into the test cartridge, and off you go.
All right. Quidel's Doug Bryant, thank you very much for joining us. We expect to see a lot of those tests out there.